Here's why I think auditing is fake and audited financial statements can't be trusted. This video might be a surprise. It's a deviation from what I usually talk about on the channel. But since I've been on both sides now, I used to be an auditor and now I get audited. I also have friends that are now partners at accounting firms, which, funny enough, strengthens my opinion on this matter. But if I just start from the beginning, just from the basics, every company listed on a stock exchange must have audited financial statements. That means an independent accounting firm evaluates the accuracy and compliance of a given company's financial statements. They review the numbers, the notes, the descriptions, and the commentary to make sure the accounting principles and accounting standards are met and adhered to. Makes sense, sounds simple enough, make sure everyone is telling the truth and following the rules. This is as basic as I could make it for this video. To audit a large company, you want a name, you want some prestige, you want an auditor that can handle the work, right? That's where the big four come in. And it used to be the big five, but we'll talk about number five a little later. You can see a lot of the YouTubers, let's say a lot of the financial influencers, claiming they worked at the big four. Like, oh, here's how I got a job at the big four. Here's my life as a big four consultant. A day in the life of a big four, whatever. They even put former sometimes, like here's tax advice from a former big four accountant, former big four manager. Do you mean this big four or this big four? Or how about this big four? Okay, so it used to be big five. 25 years ago, Arthur Andersen, the largest accounting firm at the time, they were involved in fraud and cooking the books of Enron, one of the biggest scandals ever. And get this, 85,000 staff, all the partners at Arthur Andersen, nobody went to jail. The staff and the partners and everyone else involved, they just went to the other four accounting firms. Nobody went to jail. And you know what? You know what's funny? My advanced accounting professor in university was an auditor at Arthur Andersen, and she was teaching me about ethics. Interesting. Don't get me wrong. I feel like it used to carry prestige. It used to mean something. I was once proud to be called a chartered accountant. I'm a CA. I did it the hard way. I did the hard exams. I did 3 years of articling at an audit firm. Words are hard. I just don't think it's hard anymore. It's an open door. I used to do 6 exams, 5 hours each in order to be a CA. And the exams were only offered once a year. So if you fail one, you have to wait an entire year to rewrite it. And now it's just like a high five, you write your name and you get a pass. And it's clear with the quality of auditors and services now, hence all the cheating and scandals now. And it's not the junior level staff, it's the partners. This is their fault. Everything I'm complaining about is their doing. It's always the people at the top giving directives and everyone else below has to do it. Let me start with one of the comments I made a little earlier. An audit is done by an independent accounting firm. Independent is the key word here, but okay, here's a dumb example, I know, but just to paint the picture. Imagine I'm selling drugs and there's a dedicated officer trying to catch me and send me to jail. But get this, I'm paying the salary of the officer. This sounds weird, right? If the cop catches me and sends me to jail, I don't pay their salary anymore. So they don't want to catch me, right? Isn't that dumb? Well, auditors are kind of the same thing. Auditors are being paid by the companies they're auditing. Before you go public, you need to be audited for a few years. You have to choose an auditor. You put out a request, and obviously you're probably going to choose the cheapest option. Nobody wants to pay 10 times the average invoice to get audited more. And for the inspectors to do better work, they want to pay the least amount to get the statements out the door. Imagine I'm paying the salary of the person reviewing my work and trying to catch my errors. I'll say that again. I'm a CEO. I'm trying to present the company in the best light. I want the stock price to go up, and I also pay the person keeping me honest. But how does that work? If I get too many notes or get an opinion I don't like from the auditor, I can simply change and go to a different company and a different auditor. But imagine an audit partner losing a $4 million or $5 million client. They'll probably be reprimanded or lose their partnership, maybe. Their income goes down, and worst of all, their ego will be hurt. Oh, that fragile ego. You want an auditing client to stay because you can sell them tax services, you can sell them consulting services. Consulting, I believe, is more lucrative than auditing. So not only will you be hurting your own pocketbook, you're hurting the other partners that rely on that client. don't you think a partner would be tempted to look the other way or forego additional testing or give advice to things a little differently? An accounting firm is running a business first and focusing on the rules or ethics second. But I don't think anyone is intentionally being shady. I think it's a gradual build. You only get partnership if you can prove you can bring and retain clients. You only retain clients by keeping them happy, and keeping them happy might mean letting some things slide. And again, I think it's the gray areas. Accounting standards aren't really set in stone. There's some rules, there's some interpretation in the rules and some boundaries you can push. And I think it's a gradual build. Eventually, you know what? Even just look at some of the tax scandals. The richer you are, the more tax loopholes there are for you to exploit. You hire these accounting firms to help you exploit these loopholes, and what happens when they get caught? It's nothing. It's a small fine. And that's only if you get caught. It's a cost of doing business. That's why I can find 1,000 examples of this. It happens time and time again. If I stop bullying the partners for a second, let's focus on the staff. Again, I don't think it's the staff fault. I don't think it's the auditor's fault. It's just the cards they've been dealt. The staff are given time budgets, basically spend as little time as you can on a project so the company can pocket the most amount of cash and move on. But this means two things: doing the bare minimum to save time and also hiring the cheapest staff. Think about it. 11 years ago, when I first started accounting, my base salary was $55,000. And that was actually pretty good 11 years ago. And now the base salary, according to Reddit, is $48,000, $50,000, or $51.5 if you're lucky. The insane work hours and the low pay is turning off top talent from the accounting industry. And also, being able to get your designation from any company now, and not just from an audit firm, is reducing the quality of the designation. A CPA means nothing anymore, which is why I still call myself a CA, because I'm bitter. And it's not just salary. They're outsourcing the basic audit work to overseas. I've worked with these overseas auditors, and one, they don't care about what they're doing, and two, I don't think they know what they're doing. They're asking questions off a checklist and writing down my answer. They're not verifying, they're not even understanding. I'm worried about the competence of the auditors. We have something called SALI, same as last year. When I started, now this is a direct shot at my accounting firm, but who cares because they don't watch this. I wasn't taught anything. I started fresh out of university, out on an audit. I'm asking, hey, what do I do? And the response was same as last year. Just do the same as last year. Nobody wants to take the time to teach basic application because it eats into the budget. They don't want deviation. Just do the bare minimum so we don't get sued. And that's the key part. If the auditors can prove that they did the proper requirements or they did just like the basic checklist, they're happy because they'll be protected and no lawsuit. Copying what you did last year was also the cheapest and quickest, or you're just updating dates and putting a check mark. I didn't feel strongly about this when I was a beginner. I thought I had to just figure it out on my own, which I never did. Really, I just ended up quitting, but that's maybe a story for another video. The reason I feel strongly now, and I'm making this salty video, is because after being audited by 3 of the 4, I'm insanely disappointed by the quality of the work and of the staff or the training. Sometimes I spend an hour teaching the junior staff what they're auditing. Like, they're auditing me and they don't know what they're asking. So I'm just like, hey, this is what it means. This is what you're looking for. This is how to audit ABC or XYZ. This is what the assertion means. One time I had to teach a manager what he was doing. He didn't know what he was asking or what he was auditing. He was asking because he saw it on last year's file and he's doing it again. And because he didn't know what he was asking, he also didn't know if the answer was sufficient. Again, it's not their fault. Junior auditors are the cheapest, so they do majority of the day-to-day audit work. They compile everything for the partner, but also we're not really taught like the real life application in school. It's just theory. And the issue is the junior auditors, you know what, even the seniors and the managers, when they ask me questions, I can talk circles around them. I'm not just like bigging up myself, but they'll ask, why did this go up or why did this go down or what does this mean? And I can answer, but I'm so deep in the industry and in my own company, I can say a bunch of jargon and their eyes will glaze over. They don't really get what I'm saying. They can't verify if what I'm saying is completely accurate. I sound confident, so they move on. And you know what it is? It's also a pressure to have a clean audit. The partners don't want a long, drawn-out audit with errors and issues to a certain extent. The junior auditors don't want to be the messenger because partners do shoot the messenger all the time. You know, just because you're good at accounting doesn't mean you're good at business or even managing staff. I've worked with auditors and even partners who have never had another job outside the audit industry, so they don't know how a real company works, the ins and outs. I had this confirmed with a very senior audit partner who got bored, money, and went into industry and was just flabbergasted at how much he didn't know. But maybe I should have said this earlier in the video. Audits and auditors aren't meant to detect fraud. Fraud is hard to catch. Someone is purposely trying to deceive you. They're creating fake signatures and fake paperwork, so everything looks real. Audits are meant to catch errors and misstatements, and in doing so, you could catch fraud. You know, I think fraud is rare, but you do see the same auditors coming up again and again as being part of it. I think fraud is rare unless you're FTX, which had audited financial statements, 2 years of approved statements, approved and signed by an auditor, one of the biggest frauds in history, audited and trusted by millions. And what was the penalty? It was actually a relatively small fine. And that's probably another point leading to the demise of accounting and the auditing system. Weak oversight and even weaker penalties. Who polices the police? Who watches the watchers? Look at the examples of cheating that I showed a little earlier. No one went to jail or lost their license or their job. Okay, you know what? Maybe jail is a little harsh, but there should be some punishment other than fine. The penalties were just fines. 50 million for one, which wasn't enough. So then the next time it happened, they doubled it to 100 million for the other cheating scandal. They have the money. They know if they get caught, they'll just get fined, and they're fine with the fines. If you've made it this far, you know, I'm not really complaining about the audit process or the use of sampling. We have to use samples. There's no way you can audit 100% of a company or even 20%. There's just too much, and it'll never get done in a timely manner to make the information important or useful. I'm complaining about the industry, and it's all stemming from the people at the top. And you know, okay, one last thing I'll complain about, the ever-evolving accounting standards or audit standards. I'm not saying they shouldn't evolve and get better, but the last point is the hardest to prove. Are they getting better? The rules are changing every 2-3 years. You can't have anything memorized. You can't be an expert. You can't even find previous examples of how things were done. They just keep changing. I think that both the companies and the auditors have trouble keeping up with how new rules and learning how to apply them correctly. I think I'm going to cut a bunch of this out. I just sound too bitter. I guess I am bitter, but I was being too harsh maybe on my previous audit firm. I'll cut some stuff out. I do enjoy doing these rants. Nobody usually watches them. So if you made it this far, thanks for watching the video. Sub to the channel and give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you're an auditor, and tune into the next one.